The Fact Finders. Case of the Hooded Bullies. By Sylvester Scoe-Forrue. The autumn sun hung low over Theodore Money High School in Mobile, Alabama, casting an eerie glow across the empty parking lot. Billy Bob clutched his backpack tighter as he hurried toward the science building, his mind still buzzing with equations from the advanced calculus competition he'd just won. Campus should have been deserted at this hour. Most students had cleared out an hour ago, but something felt wrong. He heard them before he saw them. Footsteps. Multiple sets. Moving fast. Billy Bob spun around just as three figures emerged from behind the gym, their faces concealed beneath dark hoods. His heart hammered against his ribs as they closed in, forming a semicircle that cut off any escape route. "Hey, genius boy," one of them sneered, voice muffled by the fabric. "Think you're so smart, don't you?" Billy Bob raised his hands defensively. "Look, I don't want any trouble." The first punch caught him in the stomach, doubling him over. The second came from his left, a glancing blow across his cheek that sent his glasses flying. Billy Bob stumbled backward, trying to shield himself as the hooded figures advanced, fists raised. Then, like a freight train barreling through a paper wall, Jaron appeared. The black linebacker's massive frame seemed to materialize out of nowhere. With one sweeping motion of his arm, he sent the first attacker sprawling across the pavement. The second hooded figure lunged at Jaron, only to be caught midair and tossed aside like a rag doll. The third tried to run, but Jaron's hand clamped down on his shoulder, spinning him around before a solid push sent him tumbling backward. They scattered like bowling pins, scrambling to their feet and disappearing into the lengthening shadows between buildings. Jaron turned to Billy Bob, who was on his hands and knees, gasping for breath. "You all right, man?" Billy Bob retrieved his glasses, miraculously unbroken, and nodded shakily. "Yeah. Thanks, Jaron. If you hadn't shown up..." "Don't mention it." Jaron extended a hand and pulled Billy Bob to his feet with ease. "But you might want to think about not walking around campus alone. Those guys meant business." Billy Bob touched his tender cheek and winced. "Yeah, I'm starting to realize that." Over the next 2 weeks, the attacks continued. Billy Bob spotted the hooded figures lurking near the library, caught glimpses of them watching from the bleachers, and twice more narrowly avoided confrontations thanks to staying in crowded areas. The fear was beginning to affect his grades, his sleep, his entire life. Finally, on a gray Thursday afternoon, Billy Bob found Jaron in the weight room, bench pressing what looked like a small car. "Jaron, can we talk?" The linebacker set down the barbell with a clang and sat up, wiping sweat from his forehead. "What's up, Billy Bob?" "I need to hire you." Jaron raised an eyebrow. "Hire me? For what?" "As my bodyguard." Billy Bob pulled out a crumpled $20 bill from his pocket. $20 a week. "You follow me around, make sure those hooded creeps don't jump me again. What do you say?" Jaron studied the money, then looked at Billy Bob's earnest, slightly desperate expression. "20 a week, huh? I know it's not much, but make it 25 and you've got a deal." Billy Bob's face fell. "I don't know if I can afford..." "I'm kidding, man." Jaron grinned and stood up, his 6'4" frame towering over Billy Bob. "20's fine. But you gotta understand, I've got practice, games, homework. I can't be with you 24/7. Just during school hours and when I'm on campus. That's when they always show up." Jaron extended his massive hand. "Deal." They shook on it, and from that moment on, Jaron became Billy Bob's shadow. He walked Billy Bob to class, waited outside the bathroom, and sat nearby during lunch. It was comforting, but also strange. Billy Bob had never had a bodyguard before, and the constant presence took some getting used to. Friday afternoon arrived with the kind of sticky humidity that made Mobile feel like a sauna. Billy Bob and Jaron walked together toward the old library building where the fact finders held their weekly meetings. Club had started as a joke, a group of friends started by the twin detectives Gigi and Fifi, who liked solving puzzles and mysteries, but over the past year they'd actually helped recover stolen equipment, identified vandals, and even exposed a cheating ring. And hidden cameras. They'd earned a reputation. Billy Bob pushed open the door to room 204, and Jaron followed him inside. Wanda looked up from her laptop, her dark eyes widening slightly when she saw Jaron. "Oh. Hey, Billy Bob." "And Jaron?" "Hey, Wanda," Billy Bob said, using the nickname he preferred for his girlfriend. The rest of the group called her Wanda, but to him she was always Wanda, or that is how he pronounced her name. Fifi and Gigi, the inseparable twins with matching auburn hair and complexion, pure and soft, sat cross-legged on the floor, sorting through a box of old case files. They looked up simultaneously, their expressions mirroring each other's surprise. Billy Bob?" Fifi said. "Why is there a linebacker in our meeting?" "Long story," Billy Bob replied, setting his backpack down. Wanda stood and walked over, reaching for Billy Bob's hand. But she hesitated, glancing at Jaron, then pulled back. Billy Bob noticed immediately. "Wanda, what's wrong?" She lowered her voice. "Can we talk? Outside?" They stepped into the hallway, leaving Jaron awkwardly standing in the doorway while the twins pretended not to stare at him. "Billy Bob, I love you, but—" Wanda crossed her arms. "Having Jaron around all the time is weird. I can't even hold your hand without feeling like we're being watched. And earlier, when I tried to kiss you on the cheek, I felt so self-conscious. Dates are supposed to be private, you know?" Billy Bob sighed. "I know, Wanda. But after what happened, what did happen? You've been vague about it all week. Come back inside. I'll explain to everyone." They returned to room 204, where Gigi had offered Jaron a chair, which looked comically small beneath him, and Fifi was studying him with open curiosity. Billy Bob took a deep breath. "Okay, everyone. I guess I should explain why Jaron's here." "And what happened to your face?" Fifi interjected, pointing at Billy Bob's left eye. Billy Bob had almost forgotten about the black eye. It had faded to a yellowish purple, but it was still visible. He touched it gingerly. "Billy Bob, what happened to you?" Fifi asked, her voice filled with concern. "The Hooded Bullies," Billy Bob said. "They jumped me 2 weeks ago in the parking lot. Jaron saved me that time, but they've been stalking me ever since. They're a gang, at least 3 of them, maybe more. They roam the grounds after school and on weekends, and whenever they see someone alone, they put on their hoods and attack. That's why I hired Jaron as my bodyguard." The room fell silent. Wanda's hand flew to her mouth. The twins exchanged worried glances. Wanda moved closer to Billy Bob and gently ruffled his hair, her earlier discomfort forgotten. "Well, I guess that is the fact finder's next case, to find out who the Hooded Bullies are." Gigi nodded firmly. "Absolutely. But nobody messes with one of us. We'll figure out who they are," Fifi added, her jaw set with determination. Billy Bob felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. Thanks, guys. I was hoping you'd say that. Wanda pulled out a fresh notebook and clicked her pen. Okay, let's start with what we know. Billy Bob, describe everything you remember about the attacks. The investigation began in earnest that weekend. The fact-finders split up, each taking different approaches to gathering information. Gigi stationed herself in the library, combing through social media posts and the school's online forums, looking for any mentions of bullying, fights, or suspicious activity. She created a timeline of incidents, marking each reported encounter with the hooded figures. Fifi took a more direct approach, interviewing students who'd been on campus after school. She carried a small notebook and wore her most serious expression, which made her look like a detective from a TV show. Wanda focused on the pattern analysis, mapping out where and when the attacks occurred. She noticed something interesting. The Hooded Bullies never struck during the week before big football games, and they seemed to avoid the area near the principal's office. Billy Bob, with Jaron in tow, retraced his steps from the first attack, looking for any clues the bullies might have left behind. They found nothing but a torn piece of dark fabric caught on a fence, possibly from one of the hoods. On Monday, the fact-finders reconvened. I've got something, Gigi announced, spinning her laptop around. Look at this. There have been 7 reported incidents with hooded attackers in the past month. All of them happened after 4 p.m., all on school grounds, and all the victims were alone. Any pattern to the victims? Wanda asked. That's the weird part. They're all different. Athletes, nerds, band kids, drama students. No obvious connection. Fifi flipped through her notes. I interviewed 12 people. Most of them didn't see anything useful, but Jenny Martinez said she saw 3 people in dark hoodies hanging around the auto shop last Thursday. She didn't think much of it at the time. The auto shop? Billy Bob leaned forward. That's interesting. It's pretty isolated. There's more, Fifi continued. Marcus Chambers told me he saw someone running away from the gym wearing a hood last week, right after the junior varsity basketball practice ended. He said the person was tall and moved fast. Wanda tapped her pen against her notebook. So we're looking for at least 3 people, possibly more, who are tall, fast, and have access to campus after hours. That could be anyone, Gigi said, frustrated. Half the school has after-school activities. Jaron, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. When I fought them off, I noticed something. One of them had a ring on his right hand. Caught the light. Looked like a class ring, maybe? That's good, Wanda said, making a note. Class rings are distinctive. If we can figure out what year. Wait, Fifi interrupted, her eyes widening. I think I know who it is. Everyone turned to look at her. Frankie Morrison, she said confidently. He's a senior, he's tall, he's always hanging around campus late, and I saw him wearing a dark hoodie last week. Plus, he's got a class ring, I've seen it. Billy Bob frowned. Frankie? The guy from the debate team? Think about it, Fifi pressed. He fits the description perfectly. And he's been acting weird lately, all secretive and stuff. That's pretty circumstantial, Wanda said cautiously. But it's worth investigating, Fifi insisted. I say we follow him, see what he's up to. The group debated for a while, but eventually agreed to keep an eye on Frankie. It wasn't much, but it was their first real lead. For the next 3 days, Fifi made it her personal mission to shadow Frankie Morrison. She watched him in the cafeteria, followed him discreetly, she thought, between classes and even staked out his usual hangout spots after school. On Wednesday afternoon, she saw him heading toward the auto shop wearing a dark hoodie. Her heart raced. This was it, the proof she needed. Fifi pulled out her phone and texted the group. Frankie heading to auto shop in hoodie. Following him, she crept along the side of the building, peering around the corner. Frankie had stopped near the entrance and was looking around nervously. Then he pulled his hood up. Fifi's breath caught. She had him. But then Frankie pulled out a key, unlocked the auto shop door, and went inside. Through the window, Fifi could see him turning on lights and working on a car. He pulled off his hood, grabbed some tools, and started tinkering with an engine. Confused, Fifi waited. And waited. 45 minutes later, Frankie emerged, locked up, and headed home. No hooded gang. No attacks. Just a guy working on a car. Still, Fifi wasn't convinced. Maybe he was being careful because he knew someone was watching. The next day, during lunch, Fifi confronted him. "Frankie Morrison," she said, marching up to his table with the other fact-finders trailing behind her. "We know what you've been doing." Frankie looked up from his sandwich, bewildered. Eating lunch?" "Don't play dumb. The hooded attacks. We know it's you." Frankie's expression shifted from confusion to anger. "What are you talking about? I haven't attacked anyone." "Then why were you sneaking around the auto shop in a hoodie yesterday?" "Sneaking around? I was working on my car. I have permission to use the shop after hours. Mr. Henderson gave me a key because I'm restoring a '67 Mustang for my senior project." He pulled out a key ring and showed them. "See? Official school key. You can ask him if you don't believe me." Fifi's confidence wavered. "But you were wearing a hood." "Because it was cold. And I didn't want to get grease in my hair." Frankie stood up, his face flushed. "I can't believe you're accusing me of this. I've never bullied anyone in my life." Billy Bob stepped forward. "Fifi, maybe we should—" "No," Fifi said stubbornly. "He fits the description. He's hiding something." "The only thing I'm hiding is how much I like you," Frankie blurted out, then immediately looked horrified. "I mean, that came out wrong. I just meant—" The cafeteria had gone quiet. Everyone was staring. Frankie grabbed his backpack and stormed out, leaving Fifi standing there with her mouth open. "Well," Gigi said quietly. "That was awkward." That afternoon, the real Hooded Bullies struck again. This time, the victim was Sarah Patel, a sophomore who'd stayed late for chess club. She was walking to her car when 3 hooded figures surrounded her. They shoved her against a wall, grabbed her backpack, and rifled through it before running off. Sarah reported it immediately, and by the time the fact-finders heard about it, they knew they'd been chasing the wrong person. Frankie had been in the library during the attack. Multiple witnesses confirmed it. Fifi felt sick with guilt. "I messed up," she said quietly during their emergency meeting that evening. "I accused an innocent person. I was so sure." "We all make mistakes," Wanda said gently. "But now we need to refocus. We're back to square one." "Not quite," Billy Bob said, studying Wanda's map. "Look at this. Every attack has happened in a specific zone, the south side of campus. And they always have an escape route toward the old maintenance building." Jaron nodded slowly. "That building's been abandoned for years. Nobody goes there." Maybe that's where they're hiding, Gigi suggested. Or where they're keeping whatever they're stealing, Wanda added. Sarah said they took her backpack. Other victims reported missing phones, wallets, and even a laptop. So they're not just bullies, Billy Bob said. They're thieves. Pieces were starting to come together, but they still didn't know who was behind the hoods. Fifi knew what she had to do. The next morning, she found Frankie at his locker. "Frankie, can we talk?" He glanced at her, his expression guarded. "What do you want?" "I want to apologize." Fifi took a deep breath. "I was wrong to accuse you. I jumped to conclusions without real evidence, and I embarrassed you in front of everyone. I'm really, really sorry." Frankie's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Yeah, well, it sucked. I know. And I understand if you hate me now." "I don't hate you," Frankie said quietly. "I was just hurt. I've actually been trying to work up the courage to talk to you for weeks, and then you accused me of being a criminal. Not exactly the conversation I was hoping for." Despite everything, Fifi felt a small smile tugging at her lips. "You really like me?" Frankie's ears turned red. "Is that really what you're focusing on right now?" "Maybe." He shook his head, but he was smiling too. "Yeah, Fifi. I really like you. Have for a while now." "Wow," Fifi said, feeling her own cheeks warm. "Maybe when this is all over, we could, I don't know, get coffee or something." "I'd like that. But first, I need to catch the real Hooded Bullies. Wanna help?" Frankie's eyes lit up. "Absolutely." With Frankie's help and his key to the auto shop, which gave them a good vantage point, the fact-finders set up a stakeout. They took turns watching the south side of campus, waiting for the hooded gang to make their next move. On Friday evening, just as the sun was setting, Gigi spotted them. "There," she whispered urgently into her walkie-talkie. 3 figures heading toward the maintenance building. They're carrying bags. The fact-finders mobilized. Billy Bob, Jaron, Wanda, Fifi, Frankie, and Gigi converged on the old maintenance building from different directions, careful to stay hidden. Through a grimy window, they could see inside. 3 people were dividing up stolen goods, phones, tablets, cash, jewelry. And they weren't wearing their hoods. Billy Bob's jaw dropped. "No way." It was Derek Peterson, Marcus's older brother and the student council treasurer. Beside him were Tiffany Rodriguez, captain of the girls' soccer team, and Jake Patterson, a senior who worked in the front office. "The student council treasurer?" Wanda breathed. "But why?" "Money," Jaron said grimly. "Look at all that stuff. They've been stealing and probably selling it." "We need to call the principal," Fifi said, pulling out her phone. But before she could dial, Derek looked up and spotted them through the window. His eyes widened and he shouted something to the others. The 3 thieves bolted for the back door. "Stop them!" Billy Bob yelled. Jaron was already moving. His linebacker instincts kicked in as he charged around the building, cutting off their escape route. Derek tried to dodge past him, but Jaron caught him by the collar and held firm. Tiffany and Jake skidded to a halt, realizing they were surrounded. "It's over," Wanda said, her phone already dialing 911. "The police are on their way." Derek struggled in Jaron's grip. "You don't understand. I needed the money." "My family. So you terrorized innocent students?" Fifi snapped. "You beat up Billy Bob?" You stole from people who trusted you? Tiffany was crying now. We didn't mean for it to get this bad. It started small, just taking things people wouldn't miss. But then Derek said we needed to be more aggressive and save it for the police, Billy Bob said coldly. Within minutes, squad cars arrived, their lights painting the old building in flashes of red and blue. Principal showed up shortly after, her face a mask of disappointment and anger as the 3 students were led away in handcuffs. The stolen goods were recovered and returned to their owners. Derek, Tiffany, and Jake were expelled and faced criminal charges. The school implemented new security measures, and the fact-finders were commended for their investigation. 2 weeks later, life at Theodore Money High School had returned to something resembling normal. Billy Bob no longer needed Jaron as a bodyguard, though they'd become genuine friends. Wanda could finally hold Billy Bob's hand and give him innocent kisses on the cheek without an audience, which made her very happy. And Fifi? She was sitting in the auto shop with Frankie, watching him work on his Mustang. "Hand me that wrench?" Frankie asked, gesturing toward the toolbox. Fifi passed it to him, then leaned against the workbench. "You know, I never thought I'd enjoy hanging out in an auto shop. And I never thought the girl who accused me of being a criminal would become my girlfriend," Frankie replied with a grin. "Technically, I'm not your girlfriend yet. We've only been on 2 dates." Frankie set down the wrench and walked over to her, wiping his hands on a rag. "Well, Fifi, would you officially like to be my girlfriend?" She pretended to think about it. "I suppose I could make that work." He laughed and kissed her forehead, leaving a small smudge of grease that made her squeal and swat at him playfully. The fact-finders gathered one last time in the library to officially close the case. Wanda typed up the final report while Billy Bob organized the evidence they'd collected. Twins were already brainstorming their next case, and Jaron had become an honorary member, his chair now a permanent fixture in the room. "Another case solved," Billy Bob said, closing the file folder with satisfaction. "And another mystery waiting," Gigi added, pointing to a news article on her laptop about strange lights seen over Mobile Bay. "That's for next time," Wanda said firmly. "Right now, I think we've earned a break." They all agreed, packing up their things and heading out into the warm Alabama evening. The Hooded Bullies were behind bars, justice had been served, and Theodore Money High School was safe again. At least until the next mystery came along. Thank you for watching and listening to another episode of The Fact Finders. Be sure to like and subscribe to SCO's Media YouTube channel for more adventures of The Fact Finders. Next episode, Sky Full of Fish.